Hello and welcome back. Today I brought you here so we could talk a little bit about ENFPs and how they are just as much of a devil's advocate as the ENTP, and I have a pretty darn good reason why. If you keep watching, you'll find out more. So, ENFPs and ENTPs share one very specific trait in common. We lead with our extroverted intuition, which means we're constantly scanning the environment for new ideas, new connections between things. We're seeing how things are related all the time. Now, ENTPs have introverted thinking, which means they're looking at the way they understand things. They want to make sure that they understand something fully, so they're going to play devil's advocate in so much as understanding a concept or idea that's being discussed. ENFPs, however, have second slot introverted feeling, which means with that extroverted intuition and introverted feeling, we want to understand the morality and the ethical nature of situations. So we will play devil's advocate in an opposing viewpoint for whatever that thing is, whatever that discussion of morality is, to the point where we'll almost start to believe ourselves. I've seen myself do this countless times before I even knew about the cognitive functions. For example, anytime someone comes to me and they're like, this is the situation I'm experiencing with so-and-so, I'm like, well, what if they're experiencing this? And then I go down that rabbit hole of they might be experiencing this emotion or situation, whatever, to the point where I start to believe that that is the case, to the point where I will counter-argue any disagreement they have until I run out. And normally I will not accept someone else's opinion until I have exhausted all the possibilities of what this person could be feeling or thinking before I accept the other person's opinion. I need to exhaust all of these things. Like, for example, if you take someone like Jordan Peterson. Before a few months ago, I never heard of him, but someone said they don't like him. And that got me thinking, is he worth disliking? And so I went down the rabbit hole of watching a bunch of his stuff, and I cannot disprove myself right now in this devil's advocate situation where I think he's a good guy. And there's a lot of people who disagree. And I purposely chose to seek out this information. I purposely chose to research him more. I purposely chose to watch more of his videos so that I could prove the opposite of what I heard people saying. And I do this with more than just people like Jordan Peterson. I do this in everyday life. I do this while I'm talking to my friends. They're like, I don't like this. And I'm like, well, here's all the reasons why you could like it. And unless they can say no to every single reason, I will not accept that they don't like something, and I will feel like I can convince them to like it, even if there's no good reason for me to go out of my way to make someone like something. If they say they don't like it, the devil's advocate in me wants to prove them wrong, wants to prove that their opinion can change. And there's something about changing people's opinions on whether things are good or bad that really gets the ENFP going. And what's funny is I've seen comments where people say, oh, the ENFP would just take the side of the first person they came across. And I think that's not true. I think we actually take the side of the underdog as much as possible, or the one who's the most disliked is the side that we'll take just to figure out if we should really dislike this person, just to figure out what's going on with them. Such as a comment that was recently made. A guy asked, he's curious what the different personality types react like when they hear about a tragedy on the news, such as a school shooting or 9/11, those kind of things. And I thought about it. And the first thing that I think about is, man, that must suck to be the person who shot up the place, because clearly they're going through some stuff if they decided to, do some kind of terrorist act. And people would probably think that that's messed up, that that is the position that I take. And this is an internal thing. This isn't something I say out loud, because I know that people do not want to hear that. They want to hear, oh, that is really sad for the people in the school, how terrible that is. And yes, I do think that. It's not that I don't think those things, but my first thought is to sympathize with the person who attacked, because there's a part of me that always wants to sympathize with the person who is most hated, for the person who is just in every regard hated. Not always. If there's something that crosses my moral code completely, then I might not take this devil's advocate stance. For example, there was a man, you guys probably saw it on the news, I don't know his name, but he went to Yale and he like raped one of this girl at a party. And that was one thing that I was like, that's effed. But now that I think about that, I'm mad at myself for taking such a solid stance on that because, you know, there probably is something he was going through to make him think that. But then there's a part of me that's like, only sociopaths would do stuff like that, which isn't true. I don't think it's just sociopaths who do that. Which, later on, I did end up writing a short story about a rape situation where it didn't really seem like rape. Because not all rape is going to be aggressive and angry, and anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I just went down way too far on that rabbit hole, and that's being an ENFP, to be honest. We go down these dangerous rabbit holes trying to figure things out, the moral complexity of it all. We want to figure it out and understand it, and we never want to really take a firm stance on what is right or wrong. We do, especially when we're underdeveloped. We take a lot of stances on what's right and wrong. But I think as we develop and get older, it becomes very difficult to have some kind of like moral answer for things because things are so gray morally. And I think that's a very FI thing. I think that FE dominants are much less likely to see this moral grayness. I've definitely experienced multiple extroverted feeling dominants who will take a stance on something without exception. Like, for example, abortion. You don't abort for any reason without exception. That's a very FE kind of decision to make, where it doesn't matter what your situation is, you do not kill a baby. Whereas my stance is, and you guys can hate me all you want for this, but I think if a person is raped and doesn't want the child, they should be able to abort in a certain period of time. Or, you know, take the day after pill. Honestly, I think that someone who's raped should just take the day after pill, just in general, because, but anyway, you should be able to have that choice. You should be able to have that choice if you're somebody who was raped. Now, if it's because you don't think you can handle the responsibility of having a baby, there is this situation of adoption, which is then another complicated moral question, because adoption systems are not really in favor of the children that much. Like, there's more children than get adopted, and if they don't get adopted by a certain age, their chances of adoption are really low, and their life quality in the orphanages is pretty low. The feelings of constant rejection, and anybody that, like, my family used to foster children a lot. And children over a certain age who are in the foster system tend to misbehave a lot, and it comes from repeatedly going into foster homes, repeatedly being adopted, and being returned. Because the thing about adoption is you can return a kid. As sad and horrendous as that sounds, you can. And it's just morally gray. Is it better to abort a child in the first trimester before it's even developed into anything so that it can avoid a terrible life? Or is it better to have the child anyway, put them up for adoption, and let them have their chance at a terrible life, which is more than likely going to happen? So that's what the kind of devil advocates conversations I'm talking about. These are the kind of moral questions going on in my mind, and as soon as I take a stance, my first reaction is, whoa, Michelle, why have you taken this stance? Are you sure this is the right stance? Should you look around and see at the other options and really think about this? That's an ENFP. We want to figure out the moral complexity of things. The ENTP wants to understand things, wants to understand it fully, and wants to make sure that he doesn't take a stance on what things are until he fully understands it. And the ENFP does that, but with moral questions. We want to understand the moral complexity of something so fully and so completely that we do take on the role of devil's advocate. So I just want to throw out there that ENFPs are devil's advocates. It's just different than an ENTP, and we don't come off as quite as combative. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and leave me down your comments. I'm sure you already have, but if you haven't, tell me about what you think about ENFPs being devil's advocate. Have you seen this in person? Have you seen ENFPs who aren't this way? Have you seen other types who play a kind of devil advocate role who aren't that ENTP stereotype of a person? And with that, like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified by my videos. I tend to put out videos 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes I post on different days, but it generally is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful, amazing, wonderful, fantastic day. Bye!